The heat that summer felt personal, like it was trying to peel the skin off the city. My shirt stuck to my back as I tightened the last screw on the balcony railing, sweat running down the side of my face. That's when I heard her voice from across the hall, soft, low, like someone afraid to disturb the air. "Noah, do you know anything about air conditioners?" I turned. Elena stood in her doorway, holding a towel to her neck. Even from across the hall, I could see the faint shimmer of sweat on her collarbone. She was in her mid-40s, the kind of woman who carried silence like perfume. Nothing loud, but it lingered. I wiped my hands on my jeans, pretending to think. "Maybe," I said. "Depends on the AC." She smiled, a half smile, like she didn't fully trust it. "It's old. Makes noise. Like it's angry at me." I didn't say it, but I knew the feeling. Inside her apartment, the air was still, heavy with the smell of citrus cleaner and something faintly floral. Books were stacked on the coffee table in uneven towers. A mug sat forgotten near the window, lipstick mark faint on the rim. She moved around me carefully, always at the edge of my sight, not avoiding, just withholding. "It's up here," she said, leading me toward the window unit. I tried hitting it a few times. That's my level of technical expertise. Her tone was dry, but her laugh cracked open the quiet. I crouched near the AC, pretending to focus, though I was too aware of her, how she leaned against the frame, one arm crossed under her chest, hair tied loosely but falling free in places. "So," I said, "you usually ask your neighbors to fix things?" "Only the ones who look like they won't make it worse." I grinned. "Then you're taking a big risk." Something shifted then, not big, not cinematic, just the space between us thinning. I caught her looking at me longer than she meant to, eyes tracing my jaw before darting away. She moved to pour water, her hand trembling slightly as the glass filled. "You're younger than you look," she said finally. I wasn't sure what to do with that. "And I stopped myself. "Old occupational hazard," I said, trying to sound normal. But she didn't laugh. She just looked at me. Really looked, the kind of look that makes time hiccup. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but that's when it happened. A low chime echoed from her phone on the counter. She froze. The screen lit up, a name flashing I couldn't quite see. Her fingers hesitated above it, then went still. Her eyes lifted back to mine, and in that moment, the room felt too small for everything unsaid between us. The AC kept humming, cold air spilling into the silence, but neither of us moved. Elena didn't mention the message, and I didn't ask. She only said, "Thank you for fixing it," and I nodded, wiping my hands on my jeans again, though they weren't dirty anymore. The air conditioner hummed steady, but the air between us wasn't steady at all. I should have left. That would have been the right thing. But I didn't. Instead, I lingered, pretending to study the blinking light on the AC like it was fascinating. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her pick up her phone, read the message, then place it face down on the counter. Her voice broke the silence first. "You still writing?" That surprised me. I hadn't told her I wrote, not directly. Maybe she'd noticed the stack of notebooks I carried from my apartment, or maybe she just saw things other people didn't. "Trying to," I said. "Mostly just deleting lately." She smiled faintly. "Deleting counts as writing. Sometimes it's the only honest part." That line stuck with me. Honest part. She said it like someone who deleted more than words in her life. I glanced at her hand. No ring. But there was a pale band of untanned skin where one used to be. It wasn't fresh, but it wasn't gone either. Before I could stop myself, I asked, "Do you live alone?" Her eyes flicked toward me, a small frown forming before she hid it with a smile. "Mostly," she said. "My daughter's in college. She used to live here before she decided I was too boring to visit." I laughed softly, but her tone carried a shadow I couldn't ignore. "What about you?" she asked, deflecting. "Girlfriend?" "Not really," I said. "Too much effort. I tend to ruin things before they start." She tilted her head. "Honest, at least." "Maybe too honest," I admitted. We both fell quiet again, the kind of quiet that feels like both a comfort and a warning. Elena moved toward the window, pushing the curtain aside. The light hit her face in a way that made her look softer, almost fragile. I realized how rarely she probably let anyone see her like that, unguarded, half in shadow. You know, she said finally, I thought you were younger when you moved in. The way you keep to yourself, I figured 20 maybe. 26, I said. But yeah, sometimes I feel 16. Sometimes I feel 60. There was no flirtation in her voice, just truth. Two people on different sides of a bridge neither had meant to cross. Then came that silence again, full, breathing, alive. I could hear my own heartbeat, the hum of the AC, the faint chirp of cicadas outside. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, fingers trembling just enough for me to notice. You can stay a little if you want, she said quietly. The air finally feels right. So I stayed. We didn't talk much. She read while I sat on the couch, pretending to check my phone. Once, she reached for her mug, and our hands brushed again. Neither of us pulled away immediately this time. For a moment, her thumb grazed the back of my hand, barely there, almost imagined, but the warmth lingered long after she let go. It wasn't a confession. It was something quieter, riskier, the kind of touch that said, I shouldn't want this, but I do. It was supposed to be simple. I fixed her AC, we talked a little, and life went back to its shape. But didn't. A week later, I was back at her door. She'd texted about a flickering light this time. I told myself it was nothing, just neighborly help. But the way my chest tightened as I knocked said otherwise. She opened the door in an oversized shirt and jeans, hair tied up messily, reading glasses still on. It's not urgent, she said, half apologetic. You don't have to, I was free. I cut in too quickly. She gave me that small, knowing look, the kind that makes you feel seen and exposed all at once. While I unscrewed the light fixture, she stood behind me, close enough that I could feel her breath when she exhaled. The room smelled faintly of coffee and her perfume. My hands trembled once, and the screwdriver slipped. You okay? She asked softly. Yeah, elite. The bulb came loose, light flickering before it died. The room dimmed, and for a second, we were both just silhouettes in the amber dusk spilling from the window. She spoke first. I got a message from my daughter today. Oh, she's coming home this weekend. A pause. With her boyfriend. I smiled politely, though I didn't know why my chest tightened. That's good. She nodded, but her eyes didn't match her words. She was asking about you. Me? She's seen you around, I guess. She said you looked familiar. Something in her tone flickered. Not quite fear, not quite guilt. I looked at her, studying the faint crease near her temple, the way she kept her arms folded. Is that a problem? Elena hesitated. She's your age, Noah. The way she said my name, quiet, weighted, made the air feel thick. Right, I said. Guess that makes this. I trailed off, unsure what this even was. Her eyes held mine, soft but firm. It makes it complicated. We both knew she wasn't talking about her daughter anymore. The silence stretched, long enough for me to hear the hum of the AC, the faint buzz of the dying bulb. She turned away, arms still crossed. You should go before it gets late. I stood there, screwdriver still in my hand, feeling something I didn't want to name. When I finally moved toward the door, she followed, keeping a few steps behind. I reached for the knob, but stopped when she whispered Noah. I turned. Her eyes searched mine, uncertain, tired. You're too young to get caught up in someone like me. I wanted to agree. I wanted to make it easy. But instead I said, maybe I already am. That broke something in the air. Not loud, not visible, but real. She stepped forward just slightly, enough that I could feel the warmth of her skin. Her hand lifted as if to touch my face, but froze halfway. We stood there, two people caught between wanting and reason, until a sharp knock echoed from her door. She flinched, pulling her hand back. A man's voice came from the other side. Elena? You home? She went pale. It's my ex-husband. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Her eyes met mine, wide and scared. You need to go. Now. I hesitated only a second before slipping out through the kitchen door, the cool night air hitting me like a slap. As I hurried down the back stairs, I heard her voice through the wall, calm, practiced, distant. And I realized, whatever this was between us, it wasn't simple anymore. It was already something we'd both started to hide. The next few days were strange. Elena didn't text, didn't call, didn't even glance my way when we passed in the hallway. And yet, every night, I found myself pausing outside her door, listening for signs of life. A kettle, a creak, her soft voice on the phone. Anything. But nothing came. Then Friday arrived, the day her daughter was coming home. I told myself I wouldn't care. I told myself I'd stay busy. By 6 p.m., I was on my balcony, pretending to read while their laughter echoed faintly through her open window. She sounded lighter, different, and that shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. Around 9, I heard footsteps in the hall. Laughter again, then silence. A door closed. A car engine started. And then quiet. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Elena, can you come for a minute? The AC's acting up again. My pulse jumped. I didn't even bother to answer, just went. When she opened the door, her hair was slightly undone, her lipstick faintly smudged. But her eyes, those careful, unreadable eyes, looked exhausted. Sorry, she murmured, stepping aside. I didn't know who else to. Don't apologize, I said. My voice came out sharper than I meant. The AC hummed perfectly fine. We both knew it. You don't have to pretend, I said quietly. Her hand froze midair, reaching for a glass. Pretend what? That this is just about the AC. The words hung there, too heavy, too late to take back. She exhaled slowly, eyes darting away. Noah, why are you doing this? I asked. You keep pulling me close, then acting like I don't exist. She turned to face me then, something fierce and frightened flickering across her face. Because it's wrong. Why? Because I'm younger? Because your daughter might see? Her silence was answer enough. I stepped closer, unable to stop myself. You think I care about that? You think I don't know what this is? Her voice trembled. You don't. You think it's a story. You think you can walk into my life, and I didn't walk in, Elena. You opened the door. That stopped her. For a second, neither of us breathed. Then she said softly, You're too young to understand the cost. I swallowed hard. Maybe, but you're too scared to remember what it feels like to be wanted. Her breath caught, sharp, almost a gasp. Don't, she whispered. Don't do that. I'm not doing anything, I said, but my voice was shaking. You are. She looked up, and the distance between us collapsed. For a heartbeat, we stood there, her eyes searching mine, her hand trembling as if she wanted to push me away or pull me closer. Then she took a slow step forward. Her fingers brushed my collarbone, tentative, electric. Noah, she whispered, voice breaking. If I let this happen, I won't stop. The words hit like fire. I reached up, gently catching her hand before she could pull back. Her pulse thudded beneath my fingers, quick, unsteady. I'm not asking you to, I said. Her eyes closed. She leaned in, just enough that her breath touched my lips, warm, shaking. And then, a sharp knock shattered the moment. We froze. From the other side of the door came a familiar voice, younger, uncertain. Mom? You left your phone in the car. Elena's eyes went wide. And just like that, everything we'd been holding back came crashing into silence. Elena moved faster than I'd ever seen her, pulling her hand back, straightening her shirt, smoothing her hair in one motion. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Go to the kitchen. Please. Before I could ask why, she turned toward the door, forcing her tone light. Coming, sweetie. I slipped out of sight just as the door opened. From where I stood, half hidden by the corner, I could hear everything. Her daughter's voice was clear, bright. You left your phone in the car. Dad said you might need it. My stomach clenched. Dad. So her ex was still around, close enough to be part of her evenings. Elena logid softly. Thank you, honey. Tell him I appreciate it. There was a pause. Then the girl, maybe 20, maybe my age, said something that made my skin crawl. Mom, that guy who lives across the hall, Noah. You didn't tell me he used to be my TA in freshman year. I froze. Elena's silence stretched. Did I not? She asked, her tone careful. Nope. Small world. Huh. The daughter said, amused. He was sweet. A little intense, though. He wrote me this long email once about my essay on loneliness. My heart sank. I remember that email, the one I'd written too late at night, when her paper had reminded me too much of myself. I'd poured too much into it. Too personal, too revealing. I'd completely forgotten her last name. Her last name. Now it all came together like a punch to the gut. Her daughter. Elena's daughter. I leaned against the counter, feeling my chest tighten. The air felt wrong, heavy, poisoned with realization. By the time I heard the door close, Elena's voice had turned calm again. Drive safe, okay? Text me when you're home. Silence. Then footsteps, hers slow, deliberate, coming toward me. She didn't speak at first. She just leaned on the doorway, arms crossed, watching me like she didn't know where to start. You knew her, she said finally. Not a question. I didn't know. Not until just now, I said quickly. It was one class. I didn't even realize. Elena's expression didn't change, but her voice did, brittle, tired. Do you understand how this looks? This wasn't. I stammered, then stopped. I didn't even know what defense to make. She's my daughter, Noah. I know. But that has nothing to do with, of course it does, she snapped, louder now. You think I can look at you and not see her face? You think this doesn't make everything worse? I wanted to reach for her, to make her see that it wasn't like that. But she stepped back, shaking her head. You should go, she whispered. Elena, please, she said, voice breaking. Before I forget what this means. The words hit harder than I expected. I left quietly, my footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. Back in my apartment, the air felt wrong, too still, too clean. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall that separated us. Through the plaster, I could hear faint movement, drawers opening, then closing, and finally silence. And somewhere in that silence, I realized she wasn't angry because she felt betrayed. She was angry because she finally couldn't pretend there wasn't something between us. 2 days passed without a word from her. No messages. No footsteps outside my door. Not even a faint sound of her humming through the wall like before. I told myself it was over, that it had to be. But the silence between us felt heavier than any argument. On the third night, the storm came. Thunder cracked through the sky, rain slamming the windows like it had a point to prove. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The building plunged into darkness. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the hallway. Only one door had light, a dim candle flickering through frosted glass. Hers. Before I could talk myself out of it, I knocked. She opened it slowly. The candlelight made her face look softer, sadder. You shouldn't be here, she said, but she didn't close the door. I know. I hesitated, rain dripping from my hair. I just needed to see you. She sighed, stepping aside. Come in before you drown. The room smelled like rain and candle wax. The power outage had turned her apartment into a world of shadows and flickering warmth. She poured tea for both of us, her hands steady, her eyes not. We sat across from each other, the quiet too full to ignore. Finally, she said it. I can't do this, Noah. Not because I don't want to, but because I do. I looked up. That's not a reason to stop. It is, she said. You think love is brave, but sometimes it's just selfish. That's not what this is. She gave a small, broken laugh. Then what is it? I had no answer. I keep thinking about her, she whispered. My daughter. You taught her once. She trusted you. And now, if she ever found out, I interrupted softly, then we'd tell her the truth, that it wasn't planned, that it wasn't wrong, that she shook her head. You still believe love explains everything. And you don't believe it explains anything. We both fell silent. The candle flickered between us, the flame bending toward her, then me, as if deciding whose side it was on. I'm not ashamed of what I feel. I said finally. But I can't pretend it's not real anymore. Her eyes met mine, raw, wet, searching. You think I can? For the first time in days, she reached out, just a small movement, her fingers brushing my wrist. Her touch felt like apology, confession, and goodbye all at once. I used to think regret was the worst thing, she said quietly. But maybe it's hope that hurts more. Rain battered the windows harder. The candle sputtered, almost dying. I turned my hand, lacing my fingers with hers. Then let it hurt, I said. At least it's ours. She didn't pull away. She didn't speak. For a long, trembling minute, we just sat there, her thumb tracing circles against my skin, her breath uneven, her eyes somewhere between surrender and sorrow. When the power came back, the lights snapped on, too bright, too harsh. She blinked, pulled her hand free, and whispered, "You should go." I stood, nodding slowly. At the door, she said my name, so soft I almost missed it. When I turned, she looked at me like she wanted to memorize me. "Thank you," she said, for reminding me I could still feel. I wanted to say something back, something brave, something final, but the words never came. I left her there, candle flickering behind her like a heartbeat fading out. And as I walked down the hall, I realized she hadn't chosen silence. She'd chosen me, just not the way I wanted. It's been 3 months since that night. The storm ended, but the silence between us stayed, softer now, almost kind. I still hear her sometimes through the wall. The sound of the kettle, the faint scrape of a chair, her phone ringing in that low, familiar tone. But she never calls for help anymore. The AC hums perfectly fine. We see each other in passing, polite nods, small smiles, like two people sharing a secret no one else could ever understand. And maybe that's enough. At first, I tried to move on. I started writing again, short pieces, fragments, really. Sentences that began with her name, then turned into something else. Sometimes I'd look at the page and realize half my stories were still about her, even when I changed every detail. I don't think she ever meant to stay in my life, but she stayed in my words. One evening, just as autumn began to touch the city, I found a small envelope slipped under my door. My name, written in her handwriting, neat, deliberate. Inside was a folded note. "You were right. Love doesn't always explain everything, but it's the only thing that ever made me stop running. I hope you write something honest. Don't delete this one." No signature, but she didn't need one. I stood there for a long time, the paper trembling slightly in my hand. It wasn't a love letter, not exactly. It was something quieter, truer. A way of saying she hadn't forgotten, even if she couldn't stay. That night, I wrote again, not about loss or regret, but about stillness. About a woman who taught me that love doesn't always need to end with someone staying. Sometimes it just teaches you how to see differently, how to look at a window lit from the inside and feel warmth instead of ache. I still catch glimpses of her sometimes, through her curtains, through the reflection in the elevator mirror. Once, our eyes met when I held the door open for her. She smiled, brief but real. "Still writing?" she asked. "Trying to," I said. Her smile deepened. "Good." Then she stepped out into the rain. No umbrella, no rush. Just the calm grace of someone who'd made peace with her choices. I watched her disappear down the street, her figure fading into the silver-gray light. And I realized that maybe love doesn't always demand a happy ending. Sometimes it just asks to be understood. The air felt cleaner that night. The hum of her AC drifted faintly through the wall again, steady and alive. Maybe it was just coincidence. Or maybe it was her way of saying goodbye. Either way, I smiled and kept writing. Did you enjoy the story? What part hit you the hardest? The silence, the confession, or the goodbye? And tell me, what kind of story should come next? A second chance? A secret affair that never was? Or something even more unexpected?